A few weeks ago, I found myself drawn to an old Victorian house at the edge of the woods. I'm 35 and love exploring lost places. I'd just moved to this small town looking for inspiration for my art. The house looked inviting despite its chipped paint and broken windows. Local legends said something tragic had happened inside, but I didn't give it much thought. When I walked through the front door, thick dust covered the floor. It was quiet. Too quiet. I set up my camera on the ground floor to capture the peeling wallpaper and the broken furniture. I felt my heart race a bit. Maybe I was just nervous. Then, I thought I heard footsteps above me. I stopped. Maybe it was just the house settling. With a shrug, I went back to taking pictures. Over the next few days, something kept pulling me back. Each time I stepped inside, the door creaked even more. I tried to shake the feeling that I was being watched, but couldn't. I explored deeper, peeking into empty rooms. Each time I felt like I wasn't alone. I thought it was just my imagination. I didn't believe in ghosts. One afternoon, as I wandered through the dark halls, I heard something that made my blood run cold. Laughter. It was bright and childlike, echoing through the empty house. I thought I'd turned around, but there was nothing. The warmth of the day faded, and an uneasy chill crept into my bones. I pulled out my camera, hoping to catch whatever this was. My hands shook, and I couldn't get a clear shot. Pushing through, I trudged upstairs even though my gut said to turn back. The stairs creaked under my weight. I found a bedroom that looked frozen in time. White sheets covered the furniture, and dust floated in the air. I raised my camera, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It felt wrong. Just as I turned to leave, the door swung shut behind me. Panic set in. I pushed against the door, but it wouldn't budge. "Hello?" I yelled, and my voice felt small in that empty space. I thought I heard someone whisper my name, just above the sound of my pounding heart. I don't know how long I struggled to open that door. Finally, it gave way. I bolted down the stairs, not stopping until I slammed through the front door into the daylight. My chest heaved as I gasped for air. That's when I saw it. Someone stood in the shadows of the porch, watching me. I blinked, but they were gone. I jumped in my car and drove away, feeling a wave of questions crash over me. What had I experienced? What was still lingering inside that house? Now, every time I pass that house, I can't help but wonder if something is still there waiting for me to return. The next afternoon, curiosity tugged at me again. I tried to focus on other things, but my mind kept drifting back to that house. My hand itched to grab my camera once more, to see if the dust had settled on my last visit. Maybe I could capture something more than just peeling paint. The laughter still echoed in my mind. I parked my car a little farther away this time, wanting to approach without that panicked rush from before. As I walked to the house, I felt a mixture of excitement and dread. The air was heavy, charged with something I couldn't quite place. When I stepped inside, the familiar musty smell hit me. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the cracked windows. I took a deep breath and began to explore again. I stepped carefully, my shoes crunching on debris. The house felt alive. Every creak and moan surrounded me like whispers in an old library. As I moved from room to room, I found old toys scattered about in a nursery. They were simple and worn, their colors faded like forgotten memories. Something about them made me uneasy. I felt like I was being drawn into a story I didn't belong to. Then I heard it again. Laughter, soft and distant, like a child playing hide-and-seek. My heart raced. I turned toward the sound, but found nothing. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing in the silence. Just then, I caught sight of a small music box on the floor, its lid slightly ajar. I knelt to pick it up, brushing the dust away. I opened it cautiously, and the tinkling melody broke the quiet. The notes were sweet, nostalgic. Then the laughter grew louder, swirling around me. I dropped the music box and it fell open, the sound stopping abruptly. Panic surged through me. I turned to leave and nearly bumped into a young girl standing in the hallway. She looked no older than 8, with dark curls framing her face. Her expression was oddly calm, but her eyes shone with mischief. "Are you here to play?" she asked, her voice echoing like the laughter I had heard. I couldn't move. "I have lots of toys in my room," she continued, pointing down the hallway where the air felt colder. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The girl tilted her head, waiting for a response, and in that moment I noticed her clothes, old-fashioned, like something from the early 1900s. This was not possible. As she took a step towards me, the shadows around her seemed to stretch, wrapping around her small figure. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping this was a trick of my imagination. But when I opened them again, she was gone, leaving behind an echo of laughter that faded into silence. I stumbled back, heart pounding against my ribcage. I had to get out. I sprinted for the staircase, only to find the door at the end of the hallway slam shut before my eyes. Gasping, I turned around, feeling the walls close in. Desperate, I moved back toward the nursery, searching for a way out. That's when I saw a flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye. Something darted past, just beyond my line of sight. It was all too much. What was this house hiding? I pushed on, adrenaline kicking in, determined to find an exit. The laughter left echoes that tangled in my mind, pulling me deeper into the mystery. I didn't want to turn back, but I desperately needed to find the truth. I sprinted back into the nursery, my heart racing with the need to escape. The dust-laden air wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, and each step made me feel more trapped. I could still hear the faint echoes of laughter, as if it was taunting me, drawing me back into its web. Just then I noticed a door in the corner of the room I hadn't seen before. It was slightly ajar, a thin sliver of darkness peering through the crack. I hesitated, listening for any sign of the girl or more laughter. Nothing. The house was still, save for the rhythmic thump of my heart in my ears. Against my better judgment, I pushed the door open. It creaked, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into shadows. The stairs were steep and worn, like a path forgotten by time. I hesitated, my instincts urging me to turn back, but the pull to discover what lay below was overwhelming. I descended cautiously, placing each foot carefully on the aged wood. As I reached the bottom, the atmosphere shifted. A chill crept up my spine. The basement was dimly lit by what remained of a flickering bulb overhead. It was bare, except for a few old crates and more dust-covered toys. But there was something else. An old rocking horse sat in the corner, its paint chipped and faded, almost as if it had been waiting for someone to play with it. That feeling of being watched came rushing back. I glanced around but saw no one. Just as I was about to turn around, I heard a soft whisper coming from behind me. "Please don't go." It was the girl's voice, soft and sorrowful. My pulse quickened. I swiveled around and saw her again, standing at the top of the stairs. "Don't leave me," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "I want to play." "Where are your parents?" I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. She didn't answer. Instead, she took a step forward. The shadows thickened around her, deepening the unease that enveloped me. "Please, just come play," she insisted, her eyes wide and pleading. The air felt charged, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for my response. "Play? I don't know how," I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. She smiled, a bright grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just follow me. We can have so much fun." Her tone was sweet, but something about it felt wrong. I glanced back at the stairs. They seemed impossibly steep, like a descent I might never return from. The only sound now was the rhythmic creaking of the house, urging me to make a choice. Suddenly, everything went dark. The bulb overhead flickered violently before extinguishing, leaving me in eerie silence. I felt a rush of cold air sweep through the basement, chilling me to the bone. In the dark, I heard movement. My pulse quickened as I strained my ears, trying to make out what was lurking just beyond my sight. My instincts screamed at me to run, but a part of me was still stuck in that moment, drawn by the girl's promise of play, a promise wrapped in shadows and mystery. Then I heard her voice again, clear and closer than before. "You're not scared, are you?" Before I could answer, the shadows shifted. Something emerged from the darkness behind her, a shadowy figure with indistinct features. Panic clawed at my throat as I realized I had lost my chance to leave. What were they? I was about to find out. I stumbled backward, my heart racing. The shadowy figure drew closer, splitting the darkness like a knife through fog. I couldn't make out its features, but the air became thick with a sense of dread. The girl's pleading eyes were now wide with an unsettling anticipation. "What do you want?" I managed to croak out, the words barely escaping my lips. The girl didn't respond. She merely pointed to the figure. A shiver ran through me, and every survival instinct told me to flee. But where was I going to run? The stairs felt like a distant memory, the exit swallowed by the suffocating atmosphere of the basement. "Stay with us," the girl said, her voice almost melodic, yet laced with something sinister. The figure continued to inch closer, and I fought the urge to scream. "Please," the girl urged again, her tone shifting to something almost desperate. "It's fun here. You'll see." In a split second, the figure lunged forward. I turned and bolted toward the staircase, desperately grabbing at the railing. My feet pounded against the wood, and every sound I made echoed in the hollow room. I had to get out. I had to escape this nightmare. I scrambled up the stairs, my fingers slipping against the worn surface. I could feel the air behind me stirring as if the figure was following, closing the gap. With a final burst of energy, I pushed myself through the door and slammed it shut. I leaned against it, gasping for breath, heart hammering in my chest. The nursery was dimmer than before, as though the very essence of the house was shifting with my fear. I risked a glance back at the door. The edge of it looked tranquil, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Something was waiting on the other side. Then I heard it. A soft thud, like something had dropped against the floor. My heart skipped. Had they followed me? I stood frozen, listening intently, and the ominous silence pressed in around me. Just as I was about to convince myself it was nothing, the laughter started again. This time it was more pronounced, more urgent. It echoed through the room, vibrant and mocking. I pressed my hands to my ears, trying to block it out, but it only grew louder, wrapping around me like a noose. "Come back," the girl's voice called again, a haunting melody filled with a mix of joy and dread. "We can have so much fun." Despair washed over me. Was there truly no escape? Just when I thought I would break, I noticed something glimmering in the corner of the room, a small toy, its metallic surface shining under the dim light. I approached it cautiously, drawn by an inexplicable urge. The object was a tiny music box, its lid slightly ajar. I felt an odd familiarity with it, as if it belonged to a part of my childhood. I opened it further, and a soft, haunting tune began to play, interwoven with the girl's laughter. Then the laughter changed. It turned into something sad, something like a cry. "Please don't go," echoed within the notes, resonating through my chest, vibrating with raw emotion. In that moment I realized the truth. I wasn't the one being watched. It was the memories that held them captive. Just when the weight of realization began to settle, I caught sight of the shadows creeping at the edges of the room, shifting once more. What was this place, and how did it hold such power over me? I could feel panic rising again as I steeled myself, knowing I would have to confront whatever lay ahead. Taking a deep breath, I turned away from the music box. determined not to be ensnared by its siren song. I had to uncover what bound the girl and the figure to this house. As I made my way back to the door, another thought crossed my mind. What if leaving meant letting go of them forever? And could I really do that? I stood in that dim nursery, the music box's melody still echoing softly in my mind. For a moment I wanted to close my eyes and let the music wash over me, but I forced myself to stay alert. I had to know what was happening. I crept toward the door, my senses on high alert. Every creak of the floor and whisper of the wind twisted my nerves tighter. I pressed my ear against the aged wood, straining to hear if anyone or anything was on the other side. The laughter had shifted again, now a cacophony of whispers that surrounded me, their tones melding into an unsettling harmony. "Stay with us," they chanted, both inviting and threatening. I backed away from the door, my heart racing again. I glanced back at the music box, its tune still hauntingly persistent. I remembered my childhood nights, entranced by its sweet lullabies, but those memories now felt like a cruel taunt. I took a deep breath, shaking my head to clear the dizzying confusion. I sensed that the answer to this darkness lay deeper within the house and not hiding behind the door. My instincts screamed at me to escape, but I couldn't leave without understanding what fun the girl spoke of, or how the figure was connected. As I turned to explore the room further, something caught my eye. The wallpaper was peeling, revealing stains I hadn't noticed before. Curiosity pulled me closer. I reached out to touch one of the stains, and a flash of memory exploded in my mind. A winter's day, laughter and snowflakes falling like feathers. Then it hit me. This was the room of a child. This was my childhood room. Confusion overwhelmed me as images flooded in, playing with toys, the color of the walls, and the laughter of friends. But beneath that warmth lay an undercurrent of sadness I hadn't noticed before. I nearly stumbled back when I felt a coldness at my back. Turning slowly, I faced the space where the girl had stood. She was there again, her face now clearer against the dim backdrop, eyes wide, filled with desperation. "You remembered," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You can't leave us." "What do you mean?" I asked, dread creeping back into my voice. I stepped back, terrified by the intensity of her gaze. "I'm trapped," she said, her voice cracking. "If you go, I'll lose my chance to be free. We all will." The air thickened as the shadowy figure materialized behind her, solidifying into the form of a man. I froze, panic paralyzing my limbs. He extended his hand, beckoning me toward him. "Join us," he urged, his voice like wind through dry leaves. "Embrace the fun." "Why do you all want me?" I gasped, heart racing. My mind reeled with questions, but one stood out the most. What happened here? And that's when I saw it. The faint outline of a door beyond the nursery, almost hidden behind a dusty dresser. It glowed faintly, like a lantern beckoning me closer. Could this doorway hold the answers I sought? Or was it simply another trap laid by the shadows that surrounded me? With a racing heart, I took a step toward it, the whispers growing more urgent behind me. "Don't go," they wailed in unison. "Stay." Their pleas faded into the background as I approached the glowing door. Determination mingled with fear. I had to choose now, understanding or escape, and what awaited me on the other side. I reached the glowing door, my hand trembling as I grasped the handle. The whispers behind me intensified, a desperate tide of voices pleading for my attention. I hesitated, fear clawing at me. What lay beyond this door? Was it really answers I sought, or more darkness? With a deep breath, I turned the handle. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase that spiraled down into shadows. Faint light flickered at the bottom, casting eerie shapes on the damp walls. I could sense an invisible force pulling me in. Paralyzed with uncertainty, I took my first step down, the wood groaning beneath my weight. As I descended, The whispers turned sharper. "You'll regret this," one voice hissed. "They'll take you too," another warned. I tried to drown them out, focusing on the flicker of light below. Each step felt heavier, but I pushed forward. I had come this far. When I reached the bottom, I paused, my heart thudding loudly in the silence. The room was small and dim, illuminated only by the glow of a single candle sitting on a wooden table. Its flame flickered as if trying to communicate something to me. Surrounding the table were faded photographs, their glass frames dust-laden and cracked. I took a closer look. Families smiled back at me, unaware of the horror that might have enveloped this house. I felt a chill run down my spine as I recognized one of the children in the photo. It was the girl from the nursery. Her eyes, so full of longing and despair, bore into me. Suddenly the door above slammed shut, startling me. I spun around to find the shadows morphing and swirling. The temperature dropped, wrapping around me like ice. Something was here. Something was watching. "Why are you here?" A voice rang out, low and hoarse, coming from the shadows. My heart raced. I tried to respond, but words failed me. I was suddenly aware of the intensity of the atmosphere. It thickened, pressing against my skin. "Answers." The voice continued, a sinister edge creeping into its tone. "What makes you think you deserve them?" A shadow shifted closer, formless but palpable, making my breath catch in my throat. I backed away, frantic now, seeking an escape. The girl's voice echoed in my mind, thin and tremulous. "Stay with us." But I couldn't. I needed to find a way out. "Get away from me," I shouted, my voice more powerful than I felt. "I just want to leave." Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed an object half buried under the dust on the table. I stepped closer, desperate for anything that might help. It was a small key, ornate and shimmering faintly. My pulse quickened. I turned it over in my palm, wondering what door it might open. The shadows around me grew restless, swirling with agitation. "You don't understand," the voice hissed again, louder this time. "You cannot escape what is already yours." The candle flickered violently and the shadows lunged forward, coiling around my feet. The overwhelming sensation of dread washed over me. I realized I was no longer just a visitor. I was part of this story, entangled in its dark past. I wasn't just looking for answers anymore. I was fighting for my life. Would the key be my salvation or my undoing? As I gripped it tightly, I heard the faint sound of laughter echoing from above, pulling me back into the darkness. Before I could make a choice, the room spun into chaos, and everything went dark. When the darkness faded, I found myself standing in a different room. The air felt thicker, charged with an energy that prickled my skin. I looked around, confused. The shadows lingered but seemed less aggressive now, perhaps waiting for me to make the next move. I focused on my surroundings. This new space was decorated with relics of a time unknown to me. Old furniture covered in white sheets, shelves lined with dusty books, and an ancient piano standing silently in the corner. I hesitated. The piano commanded my attention, almost beckoning me to approach. As I stepped closer, I noticed fresh footprints in the dust surrounding it. Panic surged through me. I wasn't alone. Someone had been here recently, but where had they gone? I glanced around, my heart pounding, searching for the source of the disturbance. The whispers returned, swirling at the edges of my mind. "Find the music," one voice urged, softer than before. "Only the music can protect you." I shivered at the thought. Was I being led into a trap? I reached out and touched the piano, its keys slightly cold beneath my fingertips. For a brief moment, I was too afraid to play. What if the sound summoned whatever still lurked in the shadows? But the voices crescendoed, encouraging me to go on. With a deep breath, I pressed down on a key. The note rang out, unexpected and haunting in the stillness. It echoed off the walls, vibrating with a pregnant tension. I played another note, and then another. The music felt alive, wrapping around me, inviting deeper exploration. As the melody filled the room, a door in the far corner creaked open, revealing a dimly lit corridor. I paused, conflicted. Should I continue playing or investigate the door? Whatever lingered in this darkness felt alive, almost sentient. The shadow shifted again, swirling, more frantic now. The laughter from before returned, louder this time, more sinister. "You shouldn't have played the song," a voice giggled. It chilled me to the bone. I closed my eyes for a moment, steeling my resolve. I couldn't remain trapped here, not when a path lay ahead. The music faltered, fading away as fear clawed at my insides. But something drew me toward that door, propelling me forward. Just as I pushed myself away from the piano, a sudden crash echoed from within the corridor. My heart skipped a beat. Had someone or something come through the door? I turned and darted toward the exit, not daring to look back. The shadows seemed to reach for me, elongating in an almost desperate attempt to latch on. The echoes of laughter twisted into cries of anguish, a haunting serenade that sent my pulse racing. Then I saw it. Glimmering in the crack of the open door was a familiar sight. The same ornate key I had found earlier, but it now hung in the air, suspended by an unseen force. It shone brighter than before, and as it swayed, my breath caught in my throat. I had to decide. Would I risk staying and find out what it unlocked, or would I escape while I still could? The shadows grew restless behind me, and the laughter escalated into a cacophony. As I contemplated my choice, the distant sound of nails scratching against wood echoed throughout the room. Whatever lay in the corridor was closing in, and I could feel the weight of time pressing down. I hesitated, caught between the urge to flee and the curiosity that burned within me. Another decision had to be made, but before I could act, I felt a sharp pull on my arm. An unseen hand had grasped me, yanking me back into the abyss. Everything went dark again, but this time I could hear whispers blending with a mournful song. "You shouldn't have come." I gasped as the darkness wrapped around me, a heavy shroud that felt like it was alive. The whispers transformed into a chaotic jumble, almost like a storm brewing inside my head. I tried to open my eyes, but everything was pitch black, thick and suffocating. Then, slowly, a faint light appeared somewhere in the void. I blinked against the glare until shapes began to materialize. I was back in the room, but now I stood near the piano, and the once faint whispers grew clearer, harmonizing into a singular voice. "You need to listen." I looked around, and the shadowy figures hovered at the edges of the room, silent now, their forms less threatening but still present. I could feel their focus on me, and I swallowed hard. What did they want? "Play again," the voice urged, tantalizing in its softness. "The music will guide you." I stepped back from the piano, conflicted. My fingers trembled. I remembered the sinister laughter, the feeling of being hunted, yet I also felt an undeniable pull towards the instrument. Maybe it was a way out, or deeper in. Taking a breath, I approached the cold keys once more. The moment my fingers brushed against them, a shiver went down my spine. I pressed a key, then another, and the gentle notes reverberated through the room, breaking the tension crisply. Suddenly, an image flashed in my mind. A picture of another door, the door from the corridor I had been too frightened to explore earlier. A deep sense of longing mixed with dread. I needed to know what lay beyond. The music swelled as I played, each note weaving a thread through the space. The shadows shifted closer, their outlines pooling around my feet. I could almost feel their breath, cool and unsettling. "Keep playing," they whispered in unison, stirring something chaotic within me. Then I heard a new sound. a low moan echoing from the corridor. It felt as though it was resonating with the music I played. My heart raced as I glanced toward the source. The key I had seen earlier dangled just within reach, though it flickered in and out like a fading star. At that moment, the shadows coalesced, forming a dark figure in front of me. It was unlike anything I had seen before. Its eyes glowed with an intense light, drawing me in. I was frozen, grappling with the fear that gripped me tighter than before. "Find the truth," the figure rasped, its voice like cracked glass. "Only then will the music reveal its purpose." Before I could gather my thoughts, the piano let out a dissonant chord that seemed to vibrate through my bones. The shadows surged, and in an instant, the light flickered out. I was plunged into darkness once more, the weight of uncertainty pressing against me. I felt the cold surface of the piano beneath my hands, desperate to hold on to something. "What truth?" I whispered into the void, though I knew the answer must lie beyond that door. Then came the laughter again, echoing not in mockery but in a twisted promise, louder and sharper this time, as if urging me to make a choice. I hesitated, caught in the unrelenting clutches of fear and the deep-seated need to uncover whatever lurked in the unknown. With a deep, shaking breath, I pulled my hand away from the piano and moved toward the corridor, despite the shadows swirling angrily around me. I was ready to face whatever awaited, but would I survive the truth? As I crossed the threshold into the darkness, everything went silent. Then, with a click, the door slammed shut behind me. The air in the corridor was thick, a mix of mustiness and something more organic, like the scent of old wood mingled with decay. I strained to hear anything besides my own ragged breathing. Silence blanketed the space, but it felt charged, as if something was waiting just out of reach. I took slow steps forward, trying to ignore the prickling sensation on the back of my neck. It didn't take long before I reached another door. This one was slightly ajar, a sliver of dark promise revealing itself. The low moan from earlier echoed faintly, stirring an unease deep in my gut. The same sound that had resonated with my music swept through my thoughts, demanding attention. I pushed the door open, its creaking a protest against my intrusion. Inside, the room revealed itself as a dusty library. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books that seemed untouched for decades. The air was heavier here, as if the weight of forgotten stories hung around me, waiting for someone to unravel them. I stepped inside, drawn to a particular book on the middle shelf. It looked out of place. A deep red cover, freshly out of time. My fingers traced its spine as I pulled it free, dust swirling around me like tiny spirits. I opened it and found the pages filled with notes in the margins, frantic scribbles that told stories of restless souls and haunted encounters. "Half-truths," I whispered, a chill creeping down my spine. I felt the shadows from the corridor spill in behind me, swirling around the room like a living entity. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but the stories on the pages lured me deeper into the unsettling atmosphere. As I flipped through, my breath caught on a particular entry. It detailed a hidden chamber beneath the house, a place where the lost would gather, if they could find it. My heart thudded hard against my chest. Was this the truth the figure had spoken of? Was I meant to find this chamber? Suddenly, I heard a rustling sound behind me. Panic surged, and I turned quickly, bracing myself. My heart raced as I faced the shadows, feeling their weight pressing in. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaky. No answer. Then, an intense cold enveloped the room, causing my breath to fog in the air. I noticed something near the corner, just at the edge of my vision. It was a dark shape, shifting slightly. I squinted, trying to make it out. That's when I saw it, a small door at the back of the library, partially hidden behind a larger shelf. It had no handle, only an ancient locking mechanism that gleamed in the dim light. My feet seemed to move of their own accord as I approached. The moaning grew louder, harmonizing with the pounding of my heart. I placed my palm against the cold wood, feeling a pulse beneath. The sound was like a haunting melody, urging me closer. I reached for the lock, my fingers trembling. Would opening this door cost me everything? Would it trap me in a fate worse than the one I had feared? When I pressed down, the lock clicked. Instead of pulling it open, I hesitated, fear choking me. Then, just as I drew in a deep breath, the library doors shut with a loud bang behind me, and I heard it, a whisper echoing through the silence. The truth is in there. The whisper lingered in the air, thickening the atmosphere around me. My heart raced, pounding against my chest as I held my breath, stunned by the sound and the sudden isolation it brought. The shadows writhed in the corners of the library, as if sensing my uncertainty, urging me to take the next step. With reluctance pulling at my heels, I turned back to the small door. The faint glow of the lock beckoned me, a siren's call wrapped in dread and promise. Everything about this place felt wrong, yet something deep inside me wanted to embrace it all, the confusion, the fear, the excitement of the unknown. I placed my fingers on the lock again, the coolness biting into my skin. The moment I applied pressure, an icy shiver shot through me, but I pressed on. It clicked open, the sound echoed around me, somehow alive beneath the layering dust. Vulnerability washed over me, tightening around my throat. What waited on the other side? The door swung open, revealing a narrow passageway illuminated by flickering candles that seemed to light themselves as I approached. Shadows flickered against the walls, appearing to wriggle in curious anticipation. I stepped cautiously inside, feeling the cool draft cascading around me. The passage felt endless, and my footsteps reverberated in the stillness, each sound magnified as if the shadows were leaning in closer to listen. Then, instinctively, I reached for the music box tucked within my jacket, a source of warmth against the cooling dread that threatened to engulf me. I held it tightly, feeling the ridges of the ornate design ground me against the chaotic essence of this house. As I progressed farther down the corridor, a faint melody began to play in the air, intertwining with my thoughts. It was sweet, but haunting, a reflection of the laughter I had heard earlier. It resonated deep in my core, and for a moment, a glimmer of hope flickered within the dark. Finally, I arrived at the end of the corridor, facing a larger door embossed with decorations that pulsed subtly in the candlelight. It stood solid and intimidating. The whispers from before surged, swirling around me like forgotten fragments of memory lost in time. I took a deep breath, the taste of age and decay heavy in my mouth, and paused. "What are you?" I whispered, although I knew the darkness held no answers. Still, the air shifted subtly, ruffling past me in response. Gingerly, I pushed the door open, revealing a dim, expansive chamber decorated with remnants of vibrant tapestries and ancient art. Arrayed against the walls were portraits of families, their faces twisted with a mix of joy and sorrow, their gazes hollow, as if they were trapped forever in a moment lost. At the center of the chamber was a figure shrouded in darkness. My breath caught in my throat as it turned to face me. It was the girl. The same mischievous glint danced in her eyes, but so too did the sadness emanating from her small frame. "You came," she said softly, her voice resonating like a lullaby, drawing me closer. "Where are we?" I asked, but my voice trembled, uncertainty bubbling within. "This is where we all gather." Her gaze shifted, encompassing the empty portraits. "We are all trapped, waiting for someone to set us free." "Free?" I echoed, bewildered. "But how?" She gestured toward a shadowed corner where something glimmered, something I couldn't quite see. "The truth is a key, just like the one you found. It can open the door to the past, our past." But the music, it's tied to the house and to us. It's what binds us all. The laughter filtered in again, weaving through the chamber like an unseen thread. "You must choose," the girl said, stepping away from me. "You can either escape and leave us behind, or you can stay and help us find peace." My heart raced, the weight of their expectations binding me tighter. While a part of me yearned to run, another part felt an unusual tug toward the promise of connection. But what would I be sacrificing? Just then, I noticed the music box glimmering, entranced by the flickering candlelight. My fingers trembled, the hint of urgency stirring within. Taking a breath, I approached it slowly. "What happens if I play it?" I asked, casting a glance back at the girl who blinked back at me, her expression both hopeful and fearful. "Then you'll discover the truth," she whispered, the shadows around us shifting. "But it may unravel more than just this place." With reluctant resolve, I grasped the music box, lifted its lid, and pressed down on the inscribed key. Immediately, the haunting melody burst forth, wrapping around me like a blanket woven from memories. The chamber responded, a resonance igniting within its walls. The shadows pulsed and swayed, responding in kind. Suddenly, a rush of winds spiraled through the room, lifting the girl into the air with ethereal grace, illuminating her with light. A symphony of laughter blended with the melancholy tones, melding the past with the present. I felt the weight of the laughter and the pain threaded tightly with the house, revealing a tapestry of lost and forgotten lives. Visions flashed before me, children playing under the sun, families laughing at the dinner table, sorrowful farewells intertwined with brightness. The girl's laughter echoed through time, transforming into cries that were woven into the very fabric of the house. Then darkness surged forward, overwhelming, and just as quickly, narrative threads shifted, each filled with profound emotion, each revealing the souls that lingered in this space, waiting for someone to acknowledge their stories. As the music swelled, the chamber began to dissolve, collapsing around me. I closed my eyes, the final echoes cascading through the cacophony like waves crashing ashore. In that last moment, I was engulfed by both light and shadows, filled with lost laughter mingling with tears. And when silence returned, I found myself standing just outside the Victorian house, the evening sky awash with twilight. I stumbled back, breathless, flushed with the weight of what I'd encountered. The house loomed before me, but it felt different now, as if it had relinquished a portion of its burden. As I glanced back one last time, the door creaked open and I caught a fleeting glimpse of the little girl, her expression serene as she waved before fading into the shadows. The darkness still lingered around the house, but there was a softness to it now. An emptiness echoed with relief. I turned away and walked back to my car, my mind swirling with questions and revelations that would never truly be answered. As I drove away, it struck me that the past would remain cloaked in mystery, each encounter less a resolution and more a continuum. I'd uncovered echoes of lives lost and stories intertwined that would follow me into my dreams, forever changing the way I saw not just that house, but the world around me. I felt a glance back, a shiver of oncoming darkness emerging, and though the laughter haunted, I understood the delicate balance of memory and release. Sometimes the past has secrets that refuse to let go, and I couldn't help but wonder if some threads would still linger, silently singing, waiting for the next curious soul to unlock their timeless tale.